Let's wrap up day 3 at the Portsmouth Invitational Tournament. I'm Dave Shore. Chris Ekstrand is a consultant to the NBA. And Chris, you've watched another day of activity. What stood out today?
I think, again, the physicality opened up just a little bit, and there were some more shots to be made. And you saw some of the three-point shooters who were really cold in their first game warm up a little bit in this game. So there were also some very ill-advised three-point shots being taken by people who never were allowed to shoot them during their college season. So that's always interesting. Some of them went in, but most of them did not.
People don't realize that at this, they not only play games, but they get tested on many different scales. How important are the results of the testing? We hear so much about it at the NFL Combine. What about in basketball?
Well, the NBA is full of elite athletes of all different shapes and sizes. I mean, they're elite athletes who are 7 feet tall, there are elite athletes who are 6 feet tall, but everybody is pretty elite at something. And so the testing gives the scouts another tool of measurement where you say, there are guys who, fit the bill and they can compete against NBA level athletes because let's face it, you can't be an average athlete anymore and be in the NBA. I mean, the only guy probably in the whole NBA that people would say, well, he's just an average athlete, might be Nikola Jokic, but he's a 7-foot point guard. So you can get away with having average athleticism when you see the court the way he does and you're 7 feet tall and can do all the things he can do. But he has magic hands. I mean, all those guys who are averaging 10 assists, 11 assists a game, they have a magic feel for the game.
That's a great way of putting it. And we promised you that tonight we'd talk about the fact that it's very tough to get in the NBA. But what about the whole global possibility for some of these athletes? How widespread now are jobs in professional basketball?
Well, probably the first layer that I should talk about is the NBA G League. Yep. I mean, every NBA team now has a direct affiliate, plus we have a team in Mexico City. So there's 31 teams. It's really amazing how it's grown, and the opportunities have grown exponentially. The NBA has instituted 3 two-way contracts per team. So that's really 90 extra NBA jobs. These are players who make half of the minimum salary.
Great.
Now, the minimum salary is $1.2 million, so a guy on a two-way contract, if he stays on it the whole NBA season, is making about $600,000. That's more than you're going to make in Europe unless you're a superstar in Europe. So that's the first level of opportunity for the domestic players. And then, of course, the opportunities overseas have just grown and grown. I mean, Dave, I'm not telling you something you don't know, but
right.
For your audience, the traditional best leagues in Europe, Spain, France, Italy, Greece, Turkey, those are still all going strong. Some of them are better than ever. But then you've seen growth in, Finland, Iceland, Switzerland. Everywhere you look, the leagues are getting better. They have more respect. They're getting better players. Then you have the Australian NBL, which was always a good league, which is better than ever. And the Asian countries have really invested a tremendous amount of money into basketball. In Japan now, most of those teams are owned by the biggest corporations in Japan. And we always joke about it because sometimes the players who are my age, they remember playing in Serbia or Croatia, and maybe your check, that when they gave you your check, they would say, just wait a week before you go to the bank to cash this because we're a little low on funds. Well, in Japan, these guys are playing for teams that are owned by Toyota, Mitsubishi. They don't have to worry about going to the bank and having their check clear. So, they're very stable environments financially, big crowds, lots of sponsors. It looks a lot like American basketball, and the play over there has just grown and grown. They're paying better salaries, so they get better players. And China is burgeoning. They actually have 2 high-level leagues that are playing at different times of the year, and there's a ton of American players over there too. So, we have players who've played at the PIT in every league in the world. If you name a league for me, I'll go on Eurobasket.com and I'll find you out who's playing there, who played in the PIT, and it's uncanny. I mean, I could start mentioning names, but I'll just say one right off the top of my head: Marquise Reed, who was a Clemson player, terrific player, and he played here at the PIT, played very well. He's now leading the league in Turkey. He's leading the whole country in scoring, and it's a league that praises defense. He's averaging 23 points a game, leading the country. the second most points in the league is 17. So he's dominant in terms of his scoring in that league. And, again, we have players in every league in the world. Kendrick Davis, a little guy who played at Memphis and SMU, he was the runner-up for the regular season MVP in Australia, and he was the MVP of the finals, and he led his team to the championship in the finals. So, and I could go on, but one more player let me name. David Holston is a guy from Chicago State who's 5'8", 5'8". He played here in 2009. Okay, he's 40. He's 40 years old. He plays for Dijon of France in the highest league, still averaging double figures, still averaging 6-7 assists, and the guy's 40 years old, and he's a tremendous player. I mean, nobody can guard him still, and he's 40. So, he played at the PIT, it's 17 years ago now. It's incredible. So there's amazing stories of guys using this as the launching pad for their careers, and some of them, play 15, 17 years.
This is why I always promise we're going to get a wealth of information here, because historically, Chris Ekstrand is on it. We're going to wrap up the tournament. Let's do this again tomorrow night, okay?
Thank you, Dave.
All right, thanks so much. Chris Ekstrand, a consultant to the NBA and witnessing to some great talent here at the PIT.